switched to the certainly the anti-war groupings, and then I went to Europe in '65 to go to a World Peace Congress meeting with there was a Carlton Goodlett. He had a doctor who was the owner of the Sun Reporter newspaper, and he was very active in the peace movement. And so he said, they're having this World Peace Congress in Helsinki, Finland, and I want to make sure that you're going to be there. Yeah, I said, don't worry, we'll be there. And we'll send a lot of delegates and things. And so I said, I'm going over and join in on with any of the peace groups that are demonstrating, and marching, and so I was there I went over and then stayed until the and we'd I would go to the headquarters of peace. A lot of the countries or cities, major cities, had organizations, running who were organizing the peace demonstrations. And so I'd identify myself as a member of the DuBois Club, and they would say, join someone from the United States, and you can join our demonstration. So I did a lot of marching, and London, Amsterdam, and London, and then Paris. Paris, the French Union of Students invited us, a group of us, there for a week to talk about the peace things and how we can all work together, maybe internationally, with the groups, and that was really a lot of great fun.
That's great.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, and that's why I ended up in Helsinki with what was it? Kale, I think Kale may have been there, or Ringo, and I know that Ringo's wife, Ida Hallinan, was with us in Helsinki, and then also in London, because we went around throughout London raising money for medical supplies for the Vietnamese, and so we'd go to the miners, and go in, and they're all union guys, and we just give them a pitch, and they just empty out their pockets, and say, "Come back tonight, we'll get more." Yeah, so we do things like that, and then we all went to the Peace Congress, and it was a big split was then between the Soviet Union and China, and so there was a lot of conflict going on. But we came out of it all right. And that's when I was invited to go to North Vietnam, with the Vietnamese. We went to a reception, and then they asked us if we'd be interested in seeing firsthand what's taking place.
And you did?
Yeah. Yeah, we said, we're probably going to get into some trouble, but we would like to go. And they said, well, they had to go back to make sure that, it was, because I think they'd had one group before us. Yeah, and so they said, well, we'll let you know in Paris. And then they said, yes, it's been approved. We'd like you to go. And there were four of us that went. And so Mike Meyerson, who was involved in the Peace Council too, and Chris Koch, who was from WBAI, the public radio. Richard Ward, who was writing a book on Vietnam and wanted to get some interest, and we were all in Helsinki, and myself, the four of us. Yeah, so went from Paris to Moscow to Beijing, and then Beijing to a small town outside of just the north of Vietnam. And they had to wait there until they figured the bombing raids were over, and then we flew into Hanoi and met with the premier of the country, Pham Van Dong, and interviewed a captured American pilot. Talked with him and said we'd contact his family and let him know that he'd been injured in it when he crashed, but we said we'd let the parents know that he had he's alive, you know, and he certainly was recuperating too. Yeah, so that was good. Thing we thought about as we were going from place to place is how many laws we had violated. You know, and how we got up to about at least a minimum of 10 years in jail. We were saying, I think it's worth it. Well, let's just stay with us. And then when we got back to New York, we said, we're going to meet an attorney, you know. So we talked to the attorney. He says, look, the government doesn't want to really push this thing. They'd rather just let it go away. So if you don't say anything, it'll be fine. So the next morning we had a press conference. And announced, told everybody, we looked around, it was every FBI, CIA agent you can imagine, all wearing the same clothes. And we just gave them the whole story. I said, you want a first-hand account, we'll give you a first-hand account. And we split up and we all traveled around and spoke at different parts of the country. And gave them the report.
How long were you in Vietnam for?
It was about 2 weeks. 2 weeks or so, a little more than 2 weeks, I guess. Yeah. And we had to, we were going out at night because we've been traveling because that was the safest time. And they bombed the bridges, the United States, and but they had these pontoons, that they had set up, and so as soon as it got dark, they put these things up, and traffic would just flow right through, and then when it's getting light, they pull them all back. We saw, the bombing hospitals. They didn't care what they were bombing, and so.
A lot of suffering.
Yes, yeah. It was really, really tough. And we met a lot of people who had been injured, and damaged, and they had a peace committee that were there. We were their guests. And saw Ho Chi Minh, but we didn't meet with him because he was getting up there.